Hey everybody, it's Stacy with Through the Woods Consulting, here with Lisa Marshall today.
Hello.
And we are going to dig into all sorts of great things about Lisa and hear all about her past and her future and all of her great insights that I know she has developed over the years. Personally, she is a friend that I turn to and ask for advice many times about
That just
a
means
lot
I'm
of
old.
different things. No, not at all. It means that I trust your advice. So I am so honored to have her here joining us for the series today. As a reminder, Working Like a Woman is just a little casual interview series that I am doing around town. We are meeting with awesome women who are leaders in their own field and in their own lives and doing it their own way, doing it in a way that works for them, not following a playbook. And that is what I find inspiring and encouraging to the rest of us. So we are going to jump in. The format is 10 questions rapid fire. And then we'll wrap up the video piece and Lisa and I will continue our conversation, and you will find that in the link below on my blog for some deeper thought questions.
Great.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I'm ready.
Before we start with the questions, I'm going to let Lisa give you a full intro, a little bit more about yourself, your history, if anything you want to share about your family or not share, and what you've been doing. She's had a lot of really cool things in her career and where you see yourself going in the future.
Great. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor that you consider me worthy of giving advice to women. And
for sure.
I commend you for what you're doing because it's very important. I came through in a time when women were just starting to kind of work full time and emerge, and went to UCLA and then went to William and Mary Law School, where my father had gone to law school and graduated in 85. And I worked for the Virginia State Bar, first as an investigator. And then after a couple of years as a lawyer for them, screening complaints against ethical misconduct against attorneys. So there's no job shortage.
Winning lots of friends there.
Shortage, yes. When I was really popular at my husband's firm cocktail party.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But the interesting thing of that for me personally is when I did have my first child, my husband and I decided that I probably wouldn't work full time. And so I assumed that in 1990 that would kind of be the end of my career for a while. But the state bar ended up actually being very progressive and asked me if I would consider sharing my job.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which was really fabulous.
Which is still a coveted option today, to have a job share.
It is.
And it's hard to find.
It was great. And fortunately, I knew a friend attorney that was home with her first child. So we shared that job for, about 5 years and went on to have 6 kids between us.
In rapid fire.
Yeah, but it allowed me to stay in the workforce, and then I continued with them as a consultant after I had my third child in 4 years. It seemed like I was spending more time at the doctor's offices. So I stepped back a little bit, but I would just say women to always be creative and think outside the box. And I'm fortunate actually that my employer did that for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I was able to stay on as a consultant for many years with them. Then I did retire for a while, and my middle school PTA discovered that I was not working, so they reeled me in.
Totally. Yes. Line and sinker.
Made that mistake.
And that's a full-time job.
That's a full-time job. I made that mistake women make of saying, well, maybe, let me think about it. And next thing you know.
Done.
So actually being PTA president for 2 years then got me into the arena of speaking before the school board. And that's how I got sucked into, I shouldn't say sucked in, because it was a great opportunity to serve for 11 years on the Henrico County School Board. And during that time is when I went back to the Virginia State Bar. I went back to them and just said, hey, do you have any attorney work or investigative work that you need someone? And they were like, great, we need an investigator. So yeah, and that's the other thing I would say is employers are a lot more flexible than sometimes we think, because I explained that on the school board I have meetings sometimes during the day.
Yeah.
And would they be flexible on my schedule? And the answer I got was, we don't care when you do your 40 hours as long as you do it. So again, that was another incredible opportunity. But if you don't ask, then you're not gonna.
I think that's a huge point. Is so many times we go through and we think that the way the job is structured is the only way it can be. Yep. The worst that can happen is they say no.
Exactly.
And no harm, no foul. But
Exactly.
especially this day and age with everything being so mobile, so electronic, most employers don't care when you're getting the work done or how you're getting it done, as long as you're meeting the client's needs and fulfilling your obligation.
Exactly. And actually we have 12 investigators throughout the state, and we all work out of our homes. So it's also saves them because of overhead and office.
They don't have to pay for an office. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the employer would say, and I know this because they've said this to me before, that in the opportunity where they allowed me to job share, and then also this opportunity where they allowed me to serve on the school board, they got more than probably 100%, because I think you're so grateful for that opportunity. And I think employers are learning that if they are flexible and work with women, it's tenfold return.
Absolutely. For them. Yeah. That people are going to always be worried that you're not doing enough, so you can probably do more.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, are you ready to hop in?
I am ready.
First one, super easy, but it's just for us to get to know you a little bit. Yeah. What is your favorite accessory?
Gosh, I think my actual favorite accessory is a bracelet that I have, a charm bracelet that my mother got in Florence when she was a Red Cross worker after World War II.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the reasons why it's so dear to me is it's chunky and it makes this great clinking sound when you wear it. So it always reminds me of her. And the other fascinating thing is my son's second grade teacher at St. Bridget saw it and said, "Where did you get that bracelet?" And I said, "Oh, my mother was a Red Cross and got it in Florence." And she said, "Where?" And I said, "I remember." She said it was a shop on the Arno Bridge. Why? And she said, "Because my uncle is there, and he and his family have crafted those." I know, it was incredible. So she said, "I bet my uncle and his family, made that your mom bought 50 years ago."
And she recognized it. Wow.
Yeah. So that's my first personal favorite accessory.
Love it. Question number 2: what is your favorite part of the day?
My favorite part of the day is, I think the afternoon. To be honest, I'm really not a morning person.
Yeah, mornings are hard.
I have a little bit of time getting started, and I feel like I really hit my stride. Maybe around 11 is when I really feel like I've got that power portion of my day started.
Well, that's not the afternoon.
It's not the afternoon, but going into
getting into that afternoon.
It's just I'm not one that gets up at 7 and hits the ground running.
Loves it.
Yeah, I've always been that way.
Totally fair. Best to know your schedule. What would you say is your hobby?
I think my hobby is crafts, and I have a collection. I collect antique.
I am the lucky recipient of a few fabulous. That's kind of a plant, this question, because I love them.
You're so sweet. But years ago, I stumbled upon antique postcards from like 1900 on, and I collect the different holidays. And then what I like to do for some of my friends is frame them at Christmas especially, and kind of decorate the frames and give them as Christmas gifts, because the artwork is so fabulous. And it's also a connection back to a time when we had a personal connection with people. We took the time to write letters
cards.
And so I think that's something that I really love is exploring that side.
And they're beautiful. She has a great eye for just laying it all out.
Sweet.
What would you say is the most inspirational song for you at this point in your life, or in the past, anytime?
Oh my gosh, that's a great.
I know it's hard to nail down one, but
that's a really hard
one
question.
One of your just favorite songs that just really speaks to you and makes you feel alive.
Well, I love the one by Sarah McLachlan that's on the commercial with
the SPCA commercial.
Yes, because
I can't watch that commercial. I have to turn it off.
Same thing, but when you hear that, it just is so loving and opens your heart to people. Yes. So, and I think it kind of reminds us of moving beyond ourselves and trying to serve
humanity and be a service.
Yeah, so that's a personal favorite.
I like that. Okay.
And my mom loved it too. So.
Well, then double connection. Okay, number 5. Yeah, everybody has a bucket list of things they would like to do in life.
Yes.
What is one item on your bucket list that you have not yet achieved?
That's a very, very good question. I would like to go back to Stella Cilento, Salerno, Italy, where my mother's people were from.
Okay.
because one of my regrets is in the 90s when I had the 3 children in 3 years, so I was very busy, 3 and 4 years. My brothers went with my mom back to Stella Cilenta
and
went,
go.
And they went through the Bertolini Manor House and met the cousins, and they just said it was fabulous. And so, especially now that my mom has passed,
right,
I think it would be great. I'd like to get the same brothers together and for all of us to go back and revisit the old homestead
and it would
talk
have
to the relatives.
so much meaning now.
You know, it really
would.
It really would. And my oldest brother's working on, next year would be the 100th anniversary of my mother's birth, so he's working on all this genealogy stuff. So it's kind of
cool.
Yeah, got me thinking again about all the great stories in her family.
And he should do a PowerPoint to present on the trip.
Exactly. So that's one of my bucket list.
I love that one.
Thank you.
Number 6 is, what do you think is your best quality? It's a hard one for women to commit to.
You know, it really is.
But I think it's important to say it.
It is, because I think so often in our heads it's so much I should have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm pretty tough, and I think sometimes it catches people a little bit off guard. But I'm not judgmental, but I'm righteous in that I want to protect people's rights, and I want the right thing done, and I'm not afraid to stand up to people and speak my mind. And it's a little bit scary sometimes, but I think people know that I'm an advocate for them, and I'm grateful for that.
And you've had great training as an attorney to be able to competently step into that space.
You know, I have. I have.
What you think is the right thing.
I have. And what is interesting too, maybe think about that, I've noticed a difference, because when I first was an investigator for the state bar, I was in my mid-20s, and then I was an attorney for them for a while, and now for the last 8 years I've been an investigator again. And I find it interesting because I was intimidated at times as a 20-some-year-old going into some of these high-power male-dominated law firms, and asking questions, fair questions, but asking about their behavior. And now, having survived raised 3 teenagers, and that part of my life is over, it is interesting. I think as you get older, you get a little bit more confidence and
a little more grit behind you.
Yeah. So I wish I'd had a little bit more of that grit when I was earlier, not being as intimidated.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fair. Number 7 is, how do you invest in yourself?
Honestly, I would say my girlfriends. And you know this, I've come off a year of battling breast cancer, and
big wake-up call to invest in yourself. It's a big wake-up call
to invest in yourself. And also, my friends were just so incredible. And the support and love from people like you organized meals in the neighborhood, which was so
a tiny piece
incredible.
Of it.
But that connection with having so many friends contact me and do things for me is just a godsend, and it really made me realize that my girlfriends are my strength. And so that, I think, is when I want to recharge or I'm overwhelmed, definitely being with my girlfriends is something that's very valuable. That, and maybe a shot of bourbon, but we should.
I like that one too. They go well together.
They do go well together. They do.
So number 8 is sort of building on the other questions that we've asked so far. And number 8 is, what is your biggest passion in life?
I think my biggest passion is really the children, because having served so many, being a mom, having served so many years on the school board, raising my own children, and really seeing unfortunately, the inequities across the board with children. I don't want to get into anything political, but just the children that don't have the resources that my children or your children have had. And so I think trying to be an advocate for that, for stepping in and trying to get them the skill set they need, supporting their parents. There's a lot of organizations out there that do it, and I think the school system actually has become a great advocate for children, and we're asked to do so much more than we were doing even just 10 years ago. So
it goes, our kids go to public school,
right?
And here in Henrico, and we've been over the top thrilled. We're at Pinchbeck, and it is such a diverse population. That's one of the things we love about it.
It is.
They have friends of every color, of every economical background, that speak a million different languages. And I think it teaches them a great bit about the real world and having compassion and understanding for others. But I love at this school seeing how much it's not just, here's your free lunch.
Exactly.
I mean, they really are starting to, there's still a lot of work to be done, but they're starting to unravel this puzzle of, you know, it's a holistic approach to supporting these families.
And they're looking at the trauma that some of the young kids are experiencing in their homes. And now we have so many more, you know, the resources are never enough, but we have so many more social workers that go into the schools and try and work with that child just to get them to a safe place where they can sit and learn. Because when they're coming, seeing some of the things that are going on around them with the poverty, and it is terrifying. But and I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think my kid's going through Douglas Freeman High School, which is not as diverse as some of our schools, but it's about 30-35%.
It still has some diversity.
Still has diversity. But it did prepare them to just be able to interact with everyone, respect everyone, work in groups, because, you know, when they go on to the colleges now, if they do choose to go into college, it's so diverse. And I think some of the kids that have come from a little bit more of a sheltered background.
Or homogeneous population.
They might have a little bit of trouble hitting the ground running, where I think our kids have made fabulous friends. And also then are very comfortable with, I've had all my kids go on summer programs where they're helping build water systems in Guatemala, or one worked in an orphanage in Africa for a month. So, you know, it just opens their mind at a younger age that there's a whole world out there beyond their
cocoon. Beautiful. I don't know if you're an avid reader or not. Something tells me that you are. So I always want to know, what are you reading right now?
Well, I just finished Where the Crawdads Sing. Oh my gosh, that is a great book. And I think that's the right title. It's a fiction book. But I just love that. And you just, the writing was unbelievable, and you just felt like you were immersed in that world. And actually the central figure is an extremely strong, resilient, you see her as a young girl grow into a woman. Cool. So that's
perfect book for this series.
Yes, it was great. It was one of those books you couldn't stop thinking about the ending.
Awesome. You know, love it. All right, we're at our last question for the video portion. So stay tuned afterwards. Look down below for the link to read the rest of Lisa's interview that I'm going to type up in the blog. So the last question, number 10, it's biggie, save the best for last. What is your biggest life hack tip or other quote or life tip to share with other women out there who are on their journey?
Well, you know, it's not really a quote, but it was something I read in a book at a very poignant time. And that was when I had a lot of people asking me to consider to run for school board. You know, I had 3 children that were in middle school and getting ready to go into high school. And I just wasn't sure. And I kept saying no. And I can't even remember the name of the book I read, but it was talking about how so much of what we do is driven by fear, and how fear holds us back. And when you make decisions in your life, are you making decisions because you think it's really best for you and your family, or are you being driven by fear and you're afraid to do it? And again, I can't remember the quote, but that to me just spoke to me what was going on, and made me be honest with myself and say the reason why. It wasn't that I didn't think my kids could handle it, or my husband wouldn't support me, because he was incredibly supportive and they were just fine with me doing school board. But it was fear that was holding me back. And so even just reading that and making myself really think about it propelled me to say, you know what, I am scared. And a lot of it was working with a $500 million budget. You know, I've never been a numbers person.
And that's massive.
And I thought that's not in my skill set. I don't think I could handle that budget. And so it made me start thinking, and I wrote down what I was afraid of, and then just kind of reflected on them and talked to my husband one by one, and then just propelled me to overcome the fear and go on and do it, because it was the right thing to do.
That's awesome. I love that. Great advice. I know fear is the root of most of our problems for each of us. We get in our own ways, we get worried. So always just asking yourself, what's the real root behind this, and what really is the worst that can happen?
That is so true, because so often we, or even when you're thinking of, I had someone say this to me one time, when you're worried about difficult discussions you're going to have,
Yeah.
whether it's with a child or whether it's with a parent, you know, someone pointed out to me, you're assuming how they're going to react. And you know what? It's not really fair to that person. And I never thought of it that way, but they were right. I was so sure what was going to come out of their mouth. And so I kind of learned that, to step back, have that difficult discussion, but not have in my head already ready for how I thought they were going to react.
That's great. So you have actual fresh approach to what the reaction is.
Exactly.
It's authentic.
Rather than assume.
Oh, I love it. All right. Well, cheers, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you
for your
Enjoy.
time. We loved having you guys join us. Huge thank you to Lisa.
Thank you.
Read the blog, find out the rest of the awesome things that she has to say, and have a great day.
Stacy's great. Thank you so much.